watching the Fox 61 Morning News, and right now we want to get you to our segment called First and Finest. That is where we get to speak with members of the State Police Department about issues that may be impacting you. And this morning we have Trooper Josu Doralis joining us live with us. Just making sure you can hear me. Good morning, Trooper.
Good morning, Aisha. How you doing?
I'm doing well. This morning, I want to talk about something that we actually discussed here on the Fox 61 Morning News this week, the motor vehicle accidents that are happening. Now, obviously, traffic, we're seeing less congestion with less people driving to and from work and driving to school. But for some reason, we are still seeing those motor vehicle accidents. Talk to me about that trend and how serious these crashes are and what you all are seeing when your troopers are out there.
I think it's very interesting. I think we could all agree that the number of motor vehicles on the road has drastically decreased from that of previous months, which would also translate to the number of motor vehicle accidents that we're responding to as state troopers. But despite that fact, if you look at the total number of fatal motor vehicle accidents that are taking place on the state highways and state roads during the month of February and March compared to that of the 2019 and 2018 year, those numbers remain steady. So I think what we're trying to do right now is not only educate the public, just bring awareness to that situation so we could try to change some of the behaviors that are causing these fatal motor vehicle accidents to occur. I think it's extremely early to try to figure out the causes of these motor vehicle accidents. However, I think we could safely assume that when it comes to a lot of these serious injury and fatal motor vehicle accidents, one of the many factors that take place are either, some type of hazardous driving behavior, whether it be distracted driving or excessive speeds or impaired driving. So I think at this point we just want to bring awareness to the viewers out there so we could try to change that behavior.
All right, that is a very, very good advice there. And the next topic I want to touch on this morning while we have you is the Work Zone Safety Week. Talk to me about that and what it entails.
So Work Zone Safety Week ran from April 20th to the 24th. And what it basically is just bringing awareness to the fact that construction workers are out there working day and night. With warmer weather on the rise, you could expect to see an increase in motor vehicles actually hitting our roadways. But if you pay close attention, that's not the only thing you see. As I mentioned before, you'll see construction patterns both day and night. And DOT workers do an amazing job at setting up these patterns, but not only setting up the patterns, but also placing signs strategically on the road to warn motorists of oncoming patterns. And I think it's on us to pay attention to that fact and make it a safe working environment for them, not only for them, but every other motorist on the road. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't take the time to mention the move over law as it pertains to this week. A lot of people think about the move over law and they think it only pertains to first responders, fire, EMS, police, but it's for any emergency vehicle on the roadway. Just this past week, actually, we had an unfortunate situation on the Parkway where there was a motor vehicle accident. A tow truck operator was called out to remove a disabled motor vehicle from the right shoulder and was struck by a vehicle that traveled from the travel portion of the road into the shoulder. And I hate to refer to these motor vehicle collisions as accidents because we all know that these accidents are many times avoidable incidents. And again, it's extremely early to talk about the causes of these accidents, but I think it's safe to assume that in many cases it's either distracted driving, some form of hazardous driving behavior, whether it be speeding or what have you, or impaired driving.
And I also want to highlight something else this morning. You all have been hosting these blood drives in partnership with Red Cross. I believe your next one is for the 27th. Just talk to me about why it's so important for state police to put forth this effort and for you all to continue these blood drives.
Correct. So our last blood drive is going to be tomorrow, Monday the 27th, at the State Police Academy in Meriden. And again, it's after listening to one of Governor Lamont's daily briefing and coming to realize the shortages of blood drives in the state, our office decided to team up with the American Red Cross to try to get the ball rolling on that front. And I just want to take the time to extend our appreciation and show how appreciative we are to the staff at the American Red Cross. They've come in and they've done a phenomenal job at setting up these blood drives, cleaning the stations, and making people coming in feel as if it's a warming and welcoming environment. And I know we spent a lot of time, especially the past few weeks, focusing on healthcare professionals, doctors and nurses that are in the hospitals on the front lines, truly doing everything that they can to assist us in this during this COVID-19 outbreak. But I do want to take the time to show how appreciative the state police is for the workers at the American Red Cross that have been coming in day after day to host these blood drives. Just want to say thank you.
All right, Trooper, always a pleasure to hear from you all. We want to thank you for all of those updates this morning here in our First and Finest segment.
Take care.
All right, and still ahead on the Fox